The late afternoon sun filtered through the dense canopy of ancient pines, dappling the forest floor in shifting patterns of gold and shadow. Here, nestled in a small clearing beside the gently flowing Serenity River, the Miller family had found their perfect escape. For Sarah and Tom and their two children, 10-year-old Lily and 7-year-old Jake, this annual camping trip was a sacred ritual. It was a time to unplug from the world and reconnect with each other and the wild. And at the heart of their little tribe was Cooper, a magnificent golden retriever whose coat seemed to capture the very essence of the sunlight. Cooper was more than a pet. He was a silent, watchful guardian, a furry brother to the children, and a steadfast companion. As Tom expertly set up the tent and Sarah prepared a simple campfire dinner, Cooper patrolled the perimeter of their campsite. His nose twitched, deciphering the complex language of the forest, the scent of damp earth, the distant aroma of wild berries, the faint trace of a deer that had passed through hours ago. He was at peace, his tail sweeping lazy arcs through the air. The river murmured its steady, soothing song, a gentle lullaby that had defined this place for generations. The weather forecast had promised clear skies, a perfect, star-filled night. As dusk settled, painting the sky in hues of lavender and rose, the family gathered around the crackling fire. They roasted marshmallows, their faces glowing in the warm light, their laughter echoing softly into the encroaching twilight. Cooper lay at Sarah's feet, his head resting on his paws, his golden eyes reflecting the dancing flames. But as the evening wore on, a subtle shift occurred, something imperceptible to the humans, but as clear as a shout to Cooper. The air grew heavy, thick with a humidity that hadn't been there before. The gentle river's murmur seemed to change its tune, its voice deepening, gaining a lower, more resonant hum. Cooper lifted his head, his ears swiveling to catch the sound more clearly. He rose, trotting to the riverbank, his paws sinking into the soft mud. The water, which had been lapping calmly at the shore, now seemed to press against it with a new urgency. Far upstream, beyond the bend and hidden by the dense forest, the sky was a bruised, angry purple that the Millers couldn't see. A sudden, intense downpour had begun miles away, feeding a surge of water into the Serenity River's tributaries. Cooper returned to the campfire, a low whine escaping his throat. He nudged Tom's hand with his wet nose. Tom, lost in a story he was telling the kids, just ruffled Cooper's ears. "What is it, boy? Smell a squirrel?" But Cooper was persistent. He moved to Sarah, nudging her, his tail now still and low. She looked at him, a flicker of concern in her eyes. "He's acting strange," she said to Tom. "He's usually so calm out here." Jake, ever the animal whisperer, wrapped his arms around the dog's neck. "It's okay, Cooper. There are no monsters." Cooper licked the boy's face, but his gaze kept darting back towards the river, his body tense. Later, as the family zipped themselves into their sleeping bags, the world outside the tent was deceptively peaceful. The fire had been reduced to glowing embers, and the familiar chorus of crickets had begun. But Cooper refused to settle. He paced the small confines of the tent, his claws making soft clicking sounds on the tarp floor. He whined again, a more urgent, pleading sound this time. Tom, groggy with sleep, unzipped the tent flap. "Okay, boy, one last look." He peered out. The stars were still visible, the air was still. The river's sound was louder, yes, but rivers often change their volume at night. He sighed. "Come on, Cooper, lie down." Everything's fine, but everything was not fine. Cooper knew it in his bones, in the primal instinct that had been honed through generations of his ancestors. He lay down reluctantly, but he didn't sleep. He watched and he listened. An hour passed. Then two. The low hum of the river had now grown into a rumble, a deep, guttural sound that vibrated through the very ground. It was no longer a lullaby, it was a warning. Suddenly, Cooper shot to his feet. This was it. He let out a single, sharp bark, a sound so unlike his usual playful yaps that it jolted Tom and Sarah from their sleep. "What? What is it?" Sarah mumbled, sitting up. Tom grabbed a flashlight, his heart starting to pound. Cooper barked again, this time with a frantic intensity, nudging Tom's hand hard, then running to the tent's entrance and back. "Something's wrong," Tom said, his voice tight. He unzipped the tent, and the sound hit them like a physical blow. It wasn't a rumble anymore, it was a roar. He shone the flashlight towards the riverbank and his blood ran cold. The river was gone. In its place was a churning, muddy torrent, a wall of water that had already swallowed the bank and was creeping, impossibly fast, towards their tent. Small logs and debris were being tossed about like matchsticks in the violent current. "Flash flood, get up!" "Now," he yelled. Panic erupted. Sarah grabbed the children, who were now awake and crying, terrified by the noise and their parents' fear. "We have to get to the car," Tom shouted over the deafening roar. They scrambled out of the tent, the water already swirling around their ankles. It was cold, shockingly cold. Cooper didn't hesitate. He stayed close, hurting them, nudging Lily's leg when she stumbled, barking to keep them focused, to keep them moving away from the advancing water. The path to their car, just 50 yards up a gentle slope, now seemed a mile long. The ground was becoming saturated, turning to slippery mud. The water was rising with terrifying speed, now up to their knees. A wave, carrying a heavy branch, surged towards Lily, before Tom or Sarah could react. Cooper lunged, placing himself between the girl and the debris, taking the brunt of the impact with a yelp. He stumbled but recovered instantly, shaking his head and immediately returning to his duty, pushing against Lily's side, urging her up the hill. They fought for every step, the roar of the flood filling their ears, the cold water stealing their strength. Tom carried Jake, while Sarah held on to Lily, with Cooper acting as their unwavering guide and protector. Finally, their feet found the gravel of the small parking area. Tom fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking, and unlocked the car. They piled in, soaked, shivering, and gasping for breath. Tom started the engine and slammed the car into drive, pulling away just as the brown water licked at the tires. He drove up the winding service road to higher ground, not stopping until the roar of the river was a distant, menacing echo. He pulled over, and for a long moment, the only sound was the family's ragged breathing and the frantic thump of the windshield wipers clearing away a rain that had finally started to fall. They turned and looked back. Their campsite, their tent, everything they had left behind was gone, submerged beneath a raging, destructive force of nature. They were alive because of Cooper? Sarah turned and wrapped her arms around the soaking wet dog in the back seat. He licked away her tears, his tail finally giving a weak, tentative thump against the seat. The children, their fear slowly subsiding, clung to him, burying their faces in his damp fur. Tom reached back, his hand resting on Cooper's head, his heart overflowing with a gratitude too deep for words. In the quiet of the car, with the storm now breaking around them, they looked at their loyal friend. He wasn't a hero in a cape. He was just their dog. A quiet, watchful guardian who had listened to the river's angry secret and refused to let his family sleep through the danger. That night, the Miller family didn't just escape a flood. They were reminded of the profound, unspoken pact between humans and the animals they love, a bond of loyalty, courage, and a love that asks for nothing but gives everything. Cooper, their quiet hero, simply rested his head, his duty done, his family safe, and in the silent, shared understanding that passed between them, that was all that mattered. Thank you for watching. If you were moved by Cooper's story, please give this video a like and subscribe for more incredible tales of animal courage. We'll see you next time.